I-28 male spent 3 years being a fixer-upper project for my ex-girlfriend. That's how she introduced me to her corporate friends at happy hours. She was a junior VP at a marketing firm. High stress, decent pay. Obsessed with optics. I was the guy working the graveyard shift at a hotel front desk. So I could spend my days writing. To her, I was a placeholder. A warm body to split the rent with until she found someone with a real career. But the dynamic was deceptive. See, my ex loved the idea of being the breadwinner, but she was terrible with money. She leased a luxury car she couldn't afford, bought designer clothes to fit the culture, and insisted we live in a downtown loft that cost a fortune. Because I worked nights and picked up freelance copywriting gigs, I actually covered about 60% of our share expenses. I paid the utilities, the groceries, and the bulk of the rent. But because she wore the suit and I wore a hoodie, she controlled the narrative. I was a deadbeat dreamer. She was a suffering saint. I stayed because I loved her, or I thought I did. When you're in the trenches of writing a first novel, you cling to familiarity. I tuned out the snide comments. I ignored the way she rolled her eyes when I talked about plot holes. Then came the Tuesday. I'd been querying agents for 8 months. Rejection. Silence. Rejection. It's a soul-crushing grind. I was running on 4 hours of sleep, nursing a lukewarm coffee, when my phone buzzed. An unknown number from New York. It was an editor from a major publishing house. Not an agent. An editor who had intercepted my manuscript from a slush pile. They didn't just want the book. They wanted a 2-book deal. The advance they offered was more than I'd made in the last 3 years combined. It was life-changing money. I sat there, stunned. The air left the room. I felt light, weightless. When my ex came home that evening, she was already in a mood. Her boss had chewed her out. She threw her bag on the counter, narrowly missing my laptop. I told her I was ordering sushi to celebrate. But before I could finish, she snapped at me not to order the expensive stuff because she was broke until Friday. I told her we needed to talk. I was grinning. I couldn't help it. I told her I got a call. A publisher. They were buying the book. She didn't stop looking at the takeout menu on her phone. She asked if I did the laundry. I told her to listen. They offered a deal. A big one. I named the figure. She finally looked up. She stared at me for a long, uncomfortable silence. I expected a scream, a hug, tears, anything. She laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a sharp, barking sound. She told me I was lying. I told her I wasn't, that the contract was in my email. She walked over, scrolling through her phone again, dismissing me. She said I probably misread it, or it was a scam, claiming vanity presses ask for money. They don't give it. I told her the publisher's name. It's one of the big 5. It was real. She turned on her heel, her face twisting into a sneer. She told me to stop. Just stop. She asked if I really thought I was going to make it as a writer. She called me a hotel clerk. She told me to stop living in a fantasy world and get a real job so she didn't have to carry us both. Then she walked into the bedroom and slammed the door. Something in me snapped. It wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was the sound of a cable finally fraying and breaking under tension. I realized in that moment that she didn't just doubt me. She needed me to fail. My failure made her feel superior. My success was a threat to her narrative. I didn't knock on the bedroom door. I didn't try to convince her. I opened my laptop. I digitally signed the contract. I forwarded the executed document to the editor. Then I looked around the apartment. The lease was in my name, something she constantly forgot because I handled the paperwork. It was month to month now. I packed a bag, just the essentials. Laptop, clothes, toiletries, my grandfather's watch. I called my brother, who lived 40 minutes away, and told him I needed a crash pad. I left the apartment keys on the counter next to the unpaid sushi bill. I didn't leave a note. I blocked her number. I blocked her socials. I blocked her mother, who was basically a clone of her daughter, but with more hairspray and venom. I was gone before the delivery guy even rang the buzzer. I notified the landlord the next day that I was terminating the lease effective immediately, giving the required 30-day notice, but paying for the empty month up front. So I wouldn't have to step foot in there again. If she wanted to stay, she'd have to sign a new lease herself. Spoiler, She couldn't afford it. The next year was a blur of editing and silence. I rented a small studio apartment in a quiet part of town using the first installment of the advance. I wrote like a man possessed. I poured every ounce of frustration, every bit of that toxic relationship, into the edits. My agent suggested I add a dedication. I sat with the cursor blinking. I thought about writing a screw you message. I thought about taking the high road. In the end, I chose ambiguity. To everyone who believed in me, you know who you are. It was the truth. My brother believed. My few close friends believed. And I believed. The book launched 18 months later. It was a thriller about a man whose life is deconstructed by a sociopathic partner. Fiction, obviously, but the emotions were real. Marketing pushed it hard. It hit the lists. New York Times, USA Today. I was suddenly doing interviews. My face was in magazines. That's when the silence from the past finally broke. I was at a signing at a local bookstore. The line was out the door. I was signing a copy for a teenager when I saw a familiar shade of blonde hair near the back. My ex. She wasn't in line. She was standing by the biography section, watching me. She looked hungry. She waited until the crowd thinned out. I was packing up my pens. She said hi. She was wearing the dress I bought her for her last birthday. I didn't look up. She told me she read it. The book. She said it was intense. I told her I was glad she liked it. She stepped closer, invading my personal space. She put a hand on the table. Leaning in, she mentioned the dedication. She said it was sweet. She said she knew I could do it. She claimed she was just pushing me. Tough love. She said without that fire she lit under me, I wouldn't be there. I finally looked at her. The audacity was breathtaking. She was rewriting history in real time. She genuinely believed her abuse was a catalyst for my success. Therefore, she owned a piece of it. I reminded her that she told me to get a real job. She laughed, waving a hand dismissively. She said she was stressed. She claimed we were a team. She said she supported me for 3 years. She said she paid for everything so I could write this. There it was, the lie. I told her we weren't a team and she didn't support me. I signaled security. She was escorted out, but she didn't look defeated. She looked calculating. 2 days later, I got a letter, not a text, a legal letter. She was suing me. The letter was on heavy bonded paper from a law firm I'd actually heard of, a Shark Tank known for messy divorces and high-stakes civil litigation. That alone told me she hadn't just Googled a lawyer. She had gone shopping for a weapon. The claims were a masterclass in creative fiction. She was suing for palimony, which isn't technically a standalone cause of action in our state, but they were framing it under Marvin claims, breach of implied contract, unjust enrichment, and, here's the kicker, quantum root, in plain English. She claimed we had a verbal agreement that she would support me financially while I wrote the book in exchange for 50% of the future profits. She claimed she was a muse and that the plot was based on her life, implying a twisted form of co-authorship. She was asking for half the advance, half the royalties in perpetuity, and $50,000 for emotional distress caused by my abandonment. She also wanted the apartment back rent paid, claiming I had stuck her with the lease, a lease that was in my name, which I had legally terminated. I sat in my new, modest living room, staring at the paperwork. My hands weren't shaking this time. I felt a cold, hard clarity. I called my agent. She referred me to an IP and entertainment litigation attorney named Silas. Silas was a man who spoke in short sentences and didn't smile. He asked if I signed anything with her. Written agreement? Partnership docs? Napkin with a promise on it? I said no, never. He asked if she contributed to the writing. Edits? Plot outlines? I told him she never read a page until it was printed. She told me to get a real job. He asked about the financial support claim. Did she pay my way? I told him I had bank statements for the last 3 years. I paid 60% of the bills. I could prove every cent. Silas finally smiled. It was a terrifying expression. He said it was a shakedown. She saw a payday. He said we would make her regret it. But my ex wasn't waiting for the courts. She went to the court of public opinion. A week later, a TikTok video blew up. It was her, Cry in her car, no makeup, perfect lighting. She didn't name me directly. She was smart enough to avoid immediate libel, but she used enough identifiers that anyone who knew us or knew the book could connect the dots. She sobbed into the camera about imagining supporting someone for years, paying their rent, feeding them, believing in their dream when no one else did, only for them to vanish the moment they got a check. She claimed I wrote a book about her, stealing her life story to sell it as a villain. The caption was, #narcissist, #writerlife, #betrayal. The internet, being the reactive mob it is, took the bait. People found my social media. The comments started pouring in. People calling me trash, telling me to pay what I owed. My Amazon review page got review bombed. 1-star reviews from accounts created that day. Then she escalated. Her mother sent an email to my publisher's general inbox, claiming I had plagiarized the book from her daughter's journals. It was a lie, easily disproven since I had timestamps of my draft going back years, but it spooked the PR team. My publicist suggested I settle, maybe give her a consulting fee to sign an NDA and go away. I said no. It wasn't about the money. She told me I was nothing. She laughed in my face. Now she wanted to claim she made me. If I paid her a dime, I validated her lie. I called Silas and told him to take the gloves off. Silas filed a motion to dismiss, but we went further. We countersued. We sued for defamation per se, since she was attacking my professional integrity, tortious interference with business relations for the emails to publisher, and abusive process. And we subpoenaed everything. Her bank records, her texts, her emails. Discovery is a beautiful, brutal thing. It turns out, entitled people are usually sloppy because they think the rules don't apply to them. We got her text logs. The day I got the book deal, the timestamp of our conversation, she had texted her best friend. She wrote, "OMG, he thinks he's a writer again. Says he got a deal. Probably $500. I told him to grow up and get a real job. I'm so sick of carrying his dead weight." Her friend replied, "LOL, dump him." She replied back, "I will. Once I get my bonus, I'm kicking him out. He's useless." There it was, in black and white. She admitted I wasn't partner. She admitted she didn't believe in me. She admitted she wanted to dump me. But the real smoking gun was the finances. Her bank statement showed she was drowning in credit card debt. The money she supported us with, it didn't exist. My transfers to the joint account for bills were often siphoned off to pay her Nordstrom card. I had been paying the rent. She had been stealing from the household fund to buy shoes. We had the deposition scheduled for a Tuesday. I walked into the conference room in a tailored suit, paid for by my writing. She was there with her strip mall lawyer, looking smug. She thought I would fold. She thought I was still the guy who fetched her water while she complained about her boss. She didn't know I had the text. Silas arranged his papers with agonizing slowness. He asked her if she claimed there was an implied contract for her to support me financially. She said yes, claiming we were partners. He asked if she was the sole provider. She said basically claiming I made peanuts. Silas slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a spreadsheet. He asked her to explain why. On the first of every month, I deposited $1,800, and on the second of every month, $600 was transferred to her personal credit card. Her lawyer stiffened. She blinked, stuttering that she managed the finances, and it was for expenses. Silas asked if Nordstrom was a household expense, or Sephora, or a trip to Cabo that I didn't attend. She snapped that she needed to maintain her image for work. Then Silas slid the text message logs over. He read the deadweight text aloud. He asked if that sounded like a partner investing in a joint venture. Her face went pale. She grabbed the paper. She hissed at her lawyer, asking how he got this. Silas told her it was discovery. It's the law. Then he brought up the emails to the publisher. He asked her to produce a single draft she contributed to. She claimed we talked about it over dinner. Silas pulled up another text from 3 months prior, where she told me to stop talking about my stupid goblin book because nobody cared. The silence in the room was heavy. Her entitlement was crumbling. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Silas laid out the defamation claim, the TikTok video, the emails. He told her we weren't just asking for a dismissal. We were asking for legal fees, lost wages from the review bombing, and damages. He calculated the total at roughly $150,000. She gasped, saying she didn't have that kind of money. Silas told her we knew because we saw her bank statements. He suggested she get a real job. I didn't smile. I just watched her. The mask had fallen. The dirty trick came next. It was a desperate Hail Mary. During a break, her mother cornered me in the hallway near the restrooms. She was trembling with rage. She called me an ungrateful brat. She threatened that if I didn't drop the suit, they were going to the press. She said she would tell them I hit her daughter. She said she would tell them I was abusive. She asked who they would believe, a crying woman or a man. It was a nuclear option. False allegations of abuse. I held up my phone. The screen was black, but the red recording icon was pulsing. I had started recording the moment I stepped into the hall. Silas's advice, knowing we were in a one-party consent state where I didn't need her permission to record a conversation I was part of. I told her that was extortion. I told her she just threatened to file a false police report and blackmail me. I told her Silas was going to love this. Her face went gray. She backed away, stumbling a little. I told her go back inside and tell her daughter was over. We went back in. Silas played the recording for her lawyer. Her lawyer turned 3 shades of red. He requested a recess. 5 minutes later, he came back alone. He withdrew the complaint with prejudice. He said they accepted our terms for the countersuit settlement. The terms were brutal, but fair. She had to issue a public retraction on the same TikTok account, admitting she had lied about supporting me and lied about contributing to the book. She had to send a formal apology letter to my publisher. She agreed to a permanent payment plan to reimburse my legal fees. It would take her 5 years to pay it off. I didn't take the punitive damages. I didn't need her money. I needed my name cleared and her out of my life. The day the retraction video went up, I watched it once. She looked defeated, reading from a script Silas had approved. The comments on her page turned instantly. The internet hates a liar more than anything. She deleted her account 2 hours later. 6 months after the lawsuit, I was at a gala for the National Book Awards. I was nominated for Best Debut. I was wearing a tuxedo, one I bought, not one she picked out. I stepped out onto the balcony for some air. I thought about that night in the apartment, the sushi menu, the laughter, get a real job. If she hadn't said that, if she hadn't been so cruel, I might have stayed. I might have tried to make it work. I might have let her spend my advance on a lifestyle we didn't need. Her cruelty was the scissors that cut the cord. I took out my phone. I had one final loose end. I unblocked her number for 10 seconds. I sent a single photo. It was a picture of the dedication page of my book, the one she thought was about her. To everyone who believed in me, you know who you are. I followed it with a text telling her she was never the who, she was the what I had to survive to get here. Then I blocked her again. Forever. I didn't win that night. Second place is still pretty damn good, but I walked out with something better. My dignity, my career, and the absolute certainty that I had made it. I bought a house last month. It's small, quiet, and the lease is in my name. The only person I have to support is me, and I'm doing a pretty good job of it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's just succeeding so hard that they become a footnote in your biography. She wanted to be the main character of my life. Now, she's just a cautionary tale in the prologue. Looking back, I realized that what I mistook for support was actually control. Entitled people don't want partners. They want accessories.